Hello, fellow Crusaders, and welcome to our latest episode. My name is Sean Wasserkrug, and today we're going to be reviewing one of the more anticipated sequels coming out in 2024, and that is Joker Folie Deux. I think I said that correct. If I didn't, I apologize. We can just call it Joker 2. This is the sequel to one of the most shocking comic book movies that came out in the last decade, and that is Joker. I don't think anyone expected Joker to be nominated for Best Picture or for Joaquin Phoenix to win Best Actor for another role, that won Best Actor for the Joker, like with Heath Ledger before. Little did we think that we were actually even going to get a sequel to that first film, but here we are. This had huge aspirations for everyone involved. They casted Lady Gaga to be Harley Quinn, and all you could do was look up for this sequel. But then we started to hear more and more about the film, and worries started to set in with myself, such as that this was going to be kind of a jukebox musical, and that this is going to have a lot of singing in it, which, you cast Lady Gaga, I guess you kind of expect that, but I don't recall Joaquin Phoenix being much of a singer. But I wanted to keep an open mind, but I wanted to heed my expectations, because with Joker, we weren't expecting anything super great, because Todd Phillips is not a real big dramatic director. He's more comedy, such as like Old School and the Hangover trilogy. So I wasn't expecting anything great, but then Joker blew so much of us away with its dark telling of Arthur Fleck, played beautifully by Joaquin Phoenix, and to tell a different kind of story around the Joker. This one takes place 2 years after the first film, and Arthur Fleck is institutionalized at Arkham, awaiting trial for his crimes, and while struggling with his dual identity, he not only stumbles upon true love, but also finds music that's always been inside him all along. Like I said, we got Joaquin Phoenix back. Pretty much everyone that was in the first film that's alive in the first film is back for the sequel. The new additions, like I said, we got Lady Gaga, who plays Harleen Lee Quinzel. We got Brandon Gleeson, who plays one of the guards at Arkham. We got Catherine Keener, who plays Arthur Fleck's attorney in the film. Zazie Beetz returns as Sophie. We got Steve Coogan as Patty Myers. And then we got Harvey Lottie, who plays Harvey Dent in this film. So we do have some Batman connection in this movie overall. I really, really enjoyed Joaquin Phoenix as Arthur Fleck in the first film. He was managed to basically take a character that's iconic, but has always been this unhinged, don't really know where we're going with this, whether it's, Jack Nicholson, Heath Ledger, or even Jared Leto. Blanked on his name real quick there. You never really quite know where we're going to get with the Joker. With Arthur Fleck, we had a guy who was basically just this broken down, pathetic, sad man with mental issues, with, a kind of overbearing mother, and just could not get a good day if his life depended on it. He obviously had mental illnesses, and then eventually he just breaks and snaps, and the Joker character kind of is his gateway, his outlet to kind of being unhinged and do what he can, and that's where we got in the first film, and his transformation from Arthur Fleck to Joker was this amazing realization that we saw him transform. Like, just the way he held himself, the way he moved, everything about that. It was a complete transformation from one person to the next. When we start with Joker Folie Deux, and I'm going to try to walk around this the best I can without spoilers, it almost feels like in the span of the 2 years that we are between films, that Arthur has completely regressed. While Joker is still high in everyone's minds, and he still has his crazy followers and everything that we had at the end of the first film, Arthur doesn't really show any remnants of Joker in this movie. He just seems to have reverted back to his Arthur past, and which is basically just quiet. Everyone keeps saying, hey, tell me a joke, and he just kind of moseys on through his day, doesn't want to make waves, doesn't want to really do anything. Until he meets Lee, played by Lady Gaga, and she kind of brings the Joker back out of him. She basically is a fangirl to her extent. She's a hardcore, almost a Manson girl type-esque kind of character, and she wants the Joker out and back, and she kind of lights that internal fire into Arthur Fleck's character as he's about to go to trial, which the whole point of the trial is that they're trying to sell it as insanity, that he has multiple personality disorder. Arthur's one person, Joker's another, so that way he can get either a lesser sentence or at least not have to stay in Arkham. He can go to a mental institution. But with the insertion of Lee in there, that's where things really start to get muddly in the waters, and that's where the musical aspect starts to come in. Now, he meets Lee through a kind of a musical therapy part of Arkham, and from there, it, like the synopsis says, it opens this door for Arthur, and that's where the musical aspects come into play, and that's also really where a lot of the downfall of Joker Folie à Deux really come into play. Is this movie, instead of building upon where we ended with Arthur at the end of the first film, which was this relative unknown that he had fully embraced the Joker, where we saw him at the end of the movie, he had followers, he was beloved by those people, and he just seemed fully embracing it. Everything about this first hour feels like basically the last half of Joker never happened, because he's just back to being regular old Arthur, which doesn't really flow with A, how the first film ended, and B, it just kind of feels like a retrend of the entire first film. They just keep wanting to repeat over and over, here's what happened in the first movie in case you missed it. Here's some brief flashbacks to the first movie in case you missed it, which we all see in the first film. We don't need this in this movie. We're not growing, we're not expanding on this new film. We're just going over kind of the bullet points of the first film for the first hour of this movie. And then you plug in a musical number here and there. The musical numbers aren't necessarily bad per se, but they are just randomly all over the place. Sometimes you can't tell if they're in his head or if he's actually doing them with Lee in the middle of a group. And when you think it's fake, it actually is real. And when you think it's real, it's actually fake. It basically just messes with the whole tone of the film. You really just don't quite know what is real and what isn't, which they did that aspect in Joker, which was fine. But here, with the whole fantasticalness of the musical numbers and stuff like that, I mean, I guess you can kind of tell when some of them are fake because he's, dressed differently, and so is Harley. And when he's not, you think that's the real world, but it's not necessarily always all the time. And a lot of that, I think, is because I feel like they had to figure out a way to make Lady Gaga work in this movie. I know Lady Gaga's a capable actress. I've seen her be capable in other things, such as American Horror Story and even A Star is Born, but she's a singer in A Star is Born, so she really knows what to do there. But I feel like when they casted her, either they just didn't fully feel that they could just tell her as straight up as an actress this film is Harley Quinn, or we hired her, let's utilize her strengths and make this a lot of singing, which we have to open this door to a musical aspect of the film. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it just does not work with this film. Instead of expanding Joker, which I felt like the possibilities were endless, we just stay in the same spot for most of this movie. The first act is spent completely in Arkham, which is basically just a retread of the first film, with some Harley stuff thrown in between, which the sequences between Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix are some of the most intriguing and best parts of the film when they're actually having conversations. But the problem is that about 90% of this movie, Lady Gaga's singing and not actually having straight-up conversations with Arthur Fleck, which is the best parts between them, not the performances of them doing singing renditions of stuff. And then the last hour is spent on this trial, and I like trial films, so that's not a problem for me. But once again, we're not really growing this character. And the other problem that we're running into as well is I really feel that Todd Phillips is angry and annoyed with the fan base that really enjoyed his film, and that people felt bad for Arthur and supported Arthur and believed that he was not, much like his followers in the film, that most of the people watching the movie kind of were like those supporters. And I think that pissed off Todd Phillips, because he basically feels like a director who is pissed while filming this movie. Well, yes, he's not going to just completely, shit the bed here and make a bad movie. He is really out to make sure that you just are following the wrong horse going into this movie, that Arthur is not this awesome character that he created in the first film, is that he really is just a sad, pathetic loser. Because when we do get him as Joker, which is not a lot in this movie in the real world, we basically get like a scene in this movie as him as actual Joker, Well, that scene is the best scene in the movie, and it's incredibly well acted. And a huge shout out to Lee Gill, who plays Gary Puddles, who is the friend from the first film that Arthur Fleck actually, was treated with respect towards. It's during the trial for that, which is probably hands down one of the most emotional weighted film or scenes in that movie. It's incredibly well done. Once again, that scene is so all over the place with Arthur as Joker because he doesn't quite know how to be Joker anymore. He's constantly changing his tones, his accent, his mannerisms, to the point where he's fully embraced it, but then he loses it right away. And it's one of those things where it's good for that 5-10 minutes, and then we're back to Arthur just kind of being this schlub of a character. And it's just kind of just disappointing. And there are so many points in this movie where they started to do something that could have developed into something really intriguing and really great. And Todd Phillips was like, no, I don't want you guys to like this character. This guy's a loser. Fuck him. We're going to go the way that's going to piss everybody off. And that's the thing, is I feel like he made this sequel to just piss everyone off, which is really just kind of a shit way to do it. And to further prove the point, the day after this movie got released, he quit the studio. So it really just kind of felt like he did this movie out of spite. And while the ending has a unique ending, and I actually do like how it ended based off of what we were forced to watch for over 2 hours, the overall product of Joker Folie Deux is a huge miss, and I hated the experience that I got to watch here. While I do commend the performances of this film, Joaquin Phoenix is still fantastic as Joker. Brandon Gleeson is great as Jackie Sullivan, and Lee Gill, granted, he's only in one scene of this movie, but I wouldn't be repressed to want to see him nominated for supporting just because he did so well in that scene. Lady Gaga, I think, is fine for what she does in it, but she, like I said, she's literally regulated to just being kind of a Manson girl, fangirl to Arthur. And I really don't think they let Lady Gaga really soar as an actress in this film. They basically said, you're a singer, be a singer, and just be in love with Arthur Fleck. That's your motivation. And anytime they really started to get intriguing with her, they cut it off because, once again, Todd Phillips seems like he's just angry at this character and mad that he has to make this sequel. And at the end of the day, it just was a really disappointing experience. Probably the most disappointing experience of the year for me. There were so many moments where they really could have done something great with this and expanded on this character and expanded on this world that they started to build. And ultimately, it just felt like a pissed off teenager directing this film who really just wanted to blow everything up, literally, and make sure that you just absolutely hated what he had created in the first place. And I honestly want to believe in my head that this movie never existed and just have the Joker for what it was, because this completely just ruins everything that he had built in the first film, and it seems to be that he's happy about that. And you go back and you listen to the interviews that he has about this, and he's basically saying this, and this, which I'm not going to say because it's spoilery, and it just sounds like excuses and BS coming from him, and he just doesn't care. And ultimately, if he doesn't care, then why, as the viewers, should we care with the story that he developed here? So ultimately, I can't recommend Joker Folie Deux. If you're a fan of the first film, you're obviously going to check this one out. I see where he's going with the story. It's not that he just threw shit at the wall and expected you just to deal with it. There are through lines. There are character through lines to this film, and there are arcs. I just don't see a reason why you would do this outside of just, I hate this character and I want to make sure everyone that loved him hates him too. I hate this movie and I don't want you guys to like it, so I'm going to blow this up so you guys never want to talk about Joker ever again. And that's what Joker Folie Deux really does feel like to me. Whether I missed the mark, I don't care. It's my personal opinion. But I'm going to give Joker Folie Deux a 47%. And literally it is because beautifully shot. Cinematography is fantastic in this film. There's not a bad shot in this movie. And like I said, the performances of everyone is solid. It is literally a script decision, a directorial decision, and the choices made by Todd Phillips as a director in this movie, that is what makes this movie fall completely flat on its face. So yeah, what are your guys' opinions? Did you guys like this? Did you guys dislike this? Do you guys agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments below. But if you guys enjoyed this review, go and hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos pop up on the movie Crusaders. And of course, you have to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. I apologize if this was a little too spoilery, but it's really hard to explain what I wanted to do without going a little into detail. But I didn't spoil anything too bad for you. So if you guys go and see this, I apologize, A, that you guys put yourself through this, and B, that I maybe gave away a little too much in here in the actual spoiler itself. But anyway, right now we have a review for The Wild Robot, and as well as Brian Michaels and myself's holiday limited series. We started week 1 here with the Decade of Horrors, where each week we're going to go over each decade in the horror genre, how the landscape of horror was in those years, you know, the franchises, our favorite films, our overrated horror films, and our underrated horror films for each decade. We dropped the 80s earlier this week. Next week we've got the 90s, so be on the lookout for that, and we will be going every week until we hit Halloween, which will be present-day horror movies, so check out all of those when they drop on the channel. And coming up next, we have Terrifier 3, which we are both excited to see. We'll definitely have a review on there for that, as well as Saturday Night, which is also one of our more anticipated films of the year. So there will be reviews for those, as well as the Decades of Horror. So we hope you guys check all those out. And until next time, in case I don't see you, go watch some movies and go have some fun.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.